Hey, what's your favorite thing about ministry?
Getting to do this podcast, of course.
Welcome back to the Bearing Up podcast. I'm Zach Griffin. With me is Joshua Hester, and this is Bearing Up, the podcast on Christian encouragement. And we have, over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about some of the things that can be kind of disheartening when it comes to ministry. And our goal with discussing those things was encouraging people not to quit, right? But um, we can and we do recognize that maybe in bringing up some of those things uh, makes you think about your problems even more,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We don't want to be negative. We're not trying to
Right.
be Debbie Downers. Yeah.
Sometimes when you shine light on the problem, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going through that too. So what we're doing today is conversely to the last two episodes. We're going to talk about the blessings of ministry today. And we are going to try and limit this to one episode. We may do two on this. Um, but who knows? Who knows? So we've got four general things we're going to talk about. But we may expand
hmm
on them. So, like for instance, our I guess the first little segue. Actually, before we get there, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great today. How are you doing?
Man, I'm good. I'm drinking my coffee. I always am when I'm doing this podcast. So I'm like, this is a good part of my week. When I can just sit down with you, talk Bible, talk ministry. You know, uh, be encouraged by you. Try to encourage you and all of our listeners too. So it's just I'm just excited to be here, man.
Yep, it's a good day.
It's a good day. So let's kick things off. When we're talking about the blessings of ministry, we're going to go ahead and get all the little things out of the way. And I say little things, and they could be I use that word a lot. They could be built upon
hmm
more, and they're big things. I think in some ways, but you want to just rapid fire these things with me.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
can do some, I'll do some,
Yeah.
and if you think of some more,
Yeah.
So one of the great things about ministry is the flexibility that you have with things like with your family and events, and like I think about Graham, he goes on field trips all the time. Being in preschool and those elementary school kids, they go on field trips all the time. And I have a job where I can, you know, I I let the elders know and just say, "Hey, Graham's got a field trip here." And like I don't take it's not like time off, like I'm
hmm
counting days off like a teacher might, or from other any other job, you have to take a day off. And it's like, oh, I'll just take that day off and I'll work Friday.
hmm
And so I mean, it's just like it works out. There's a lot of flexibility. And there's flexibility with the methods of ministry too. Like not everybody gets to sit down and do a podcast. You know, not everybody gets to you know have a particular focus in their work that they may choose to do. And it kind of depends on the expectations that the elders set for you, but or the leadership that you have. But a lot of times you can talk about those things with them.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that you can turn anything into ministry. You go to
Yeah.
you go to a field trip, you're serving, and you're being there with Graham, and maybe you're talking to some people about Jesus.
Yep.
So I mean, it's flexible because ministry is can be everything. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. You want to do the next one?
yeah. So another thing is that you get to be someone's preacher, or you get to be someone's youth minister. Um, you get to say, when you're meeting new people, you go through all the questions of, hey, what's your name? Where are you from? How old are you? What do you do? That's one of the questions that always comes up. What do you do? You
Yeah.
get you get to say, I'm a preacher.
Yeah.
I work for God.
I work for my job is like souls.
Yeah.
but
Yes.
but something else I think is kind of cool about that is that when you're somebody else's preacher, sometimes they're proud to introduce you like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
the other day I was at a grocery store and one of the members was there. And he's actually one of the elders. And he said to one of his coworkers, he said, "This is Zach. He's our preacher." And he just said it like that, and it was like, I mean, like you're somebody's preacher, and they're proud to know you for that, and that's,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of that's a great thing. But yeah, and it's awesome to be able to say, yeah, like my job is souls. You know,
That's it.
I get to
You got the
preach the
best
word of
boss in the
God.
world.
I got
Yeah.
the best boss in the world. Yep.
Hmm.
All right.
That's
Um.
it.
Yeah. Yep. Uh. It's nice also. Being somebody's preacher. You know, some folks. This is just kind of a nice little thing. They hold you in high regard. They have a high opinion of you, and they, for somebody out there, you know, in their opinion, you're just under Jesus because you are their minister, and you can walk on water, and not everybody thinks of you like that. But when you're engaged in ministry and you're seeking to do that uh, in a godly way, and you really are a minister from the heart, people are gonna think those things about you. And so that's a little blessing of ministry, is to be regarded by people in that way.
Hmm. I think about even just a few weeks ago, there was a young lady here who is getting ready to be baptized, and because I my role here is to work with the kids, I have a relationship with her that she wanted me to baptize her, and I think about as the preacher or youth minister, you get to do that a lot. You get to be
Mm-hmm.
there in that moment. You get to share that moment, you know, with those people, and the fact that they are becoming a new person. They are being completely transformed, and you're the first person that they hug when they come out of the water. Um,
Yep.
you
That
know,
that many a wet sleeve that you get, and it's whether you got the waders on or not. It's but what a blessing that is.
hmm
Yeah. Um, and you get to be there for other people's other most important moments too.
hmm
So like you're there when they're baptized, and you get to hug that wet person, and but you're also there for you're a big part of their weddings, and the funerals. You're the person that's there and with them, and you know you may you know that people always remember who married them.
hmm
And people will always remember their minister who was with them when their dad died, or somebody that they love passed away, and you were there and you prayed with them, and you did all those things, and they never forget that stuff. And so that's a great blessing of ministry too.
Yep, you get the best and the worst moments, in people's lives, and um,
Yeah, but they're big
they're
either way.
big. Yeah, well, I mean, I
Yeah.
think about at a funeral, it's a sad moment,
Hmm.
and they want the family there, and they want their preacher there. Like
Yep.
even though it's a hard moment, you get to be there in that moment, as unlike anybody else, or not like
Hmm.
other people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
I mean,
think
other
about.
church members, they may bring by some food or something like that to the house or something
Hmm.
like that, and they go to the funeral and all. But you know that minister's there, and he's with them in the hospital, and he's with them, in days afterward when they're just sitting at the house, and it's a great blessing to be able
Hmm.
to be a part of that.
Yep, you don't have to take off to go to the hospital. You don't have to take off, because
Yeah.
it's what you do. Um,
Yeah.
I think about at least here where we are now, almost every prayer led in worship, public prayer, they they always mention the elders and the deacons, and then they mention the preacher and his family, and they
Mm.
mention me and Morgan, and
Yeah.
that's just in worship. That's for everybody to hear, you know. And I can't imagine. I don't think ministers really know or really can imagine how many prayers are being sent on their behalf.
Yeah.
How often someone goes to God and says, "Hey, I want you to, I want you to be with this person
Yeah.
because he is your worker, because he loves you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's people every day that are praying for you. If you're their minister, they're thinking about you all the time. And I remember one lady uh, that she told me that every Saturday night she would pray for me, for me to be in the right heart and have the ready recollection, uh, for the preaching and teaching the next day. And I had this relationship with her. I said, "Did you pray for me last night?"
Hmm.
She said, "Every time." I sure did. And so that's a big thing, and that's a huge thing. And then studying God's word is a big part of your job.
Hmm.
Like studying God's word is something every Christian should do. I really think we need to be in God's word every day. And when your job is ministry, a big part of that is that you get to be in God's word all the time. And so that's just another blessing besides you know the additional that we would maybe do outside of our job,
Hmm.
that each Christian should do. You know, you get to do it all the time. You get paid to do it.
Yeah.
So, did you have any others? No, that's the list that I came up with. But
Well, I think because I think about so many different things that I go to, like lectureships and polishing the pulpit and
yeah,
all these things that other people have to take off work to go to. Um,
yeah,
we get to go to because we're ministers, and we get to be
yeah,
around Christians all the time. And I don't know, there's just a brotherhood of ministers that you don't really get if you're not in that profession. But that's also something that I have gained,
yeah,
in this.
yeah. And that's something too. Like you bond with other ministers in other ways, and I mean, I just feel like you don't get that kind of bond if you're an electrician, or like, oh, there's an electrician in another town, and we get together and we
Talk
you
about
know we sing songs to God and pray together. I mean, that
yeah,
just doesn't happen. And you know, a lot of places you're fortunate enough to have a area wide preachers meeting, or things like that. And you get to have those connections and relationships, and
hmm
so that's another great thing. And of course, we said all these are like little things, but they're not little because they're special to each one of us. I think that if you're in ministry or you're doing uh, some kind of preaching or youth ministry or something like that, these things are wonderful. Uh, they are great blessings. Um, but let's go ahead and we're gonna go the another way. Uh, we've talked about little things, um, but now let's talk about making eternal differences. When you're a preacher, when you're a youth minister, when you are engaged in ministry, a missionary, you know,
hmm
you are making eternal differences, and that's not a little thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think about the fact that it's very hard to gauge success in ministry sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as in, if we've talked about it, I think, in a few episodes, but I think of Noah and how he preached for lots of years, and all he got was his family.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a very successful minister. Um, and I think about the fact that, there are people and there are souls that will be reached because of us that we'll never see.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, just no idea how far the ripple goes. Or, like,
Yeah, that's
maybe,
kind of like what. Oh no, go ahead.
I was just saying, maybe a sermon that sermon that you preach touches someone to go be a preacher themselves,
Yeah,
and then they become someone that affects eternity. And it's just this huge, big ripple effect.
yeah. Um, that's huge. You know, I was thinking about how Paul spoke to the Corinthians, and he says, we're not going to boast beyond what I do, like what we've done, but through our influence, right? We're doing this, and hopefully we'll be able to go beyond you through you. So he's kind of talking about how, like, we brought it to Corinth, and you take it to even further, and so his influence impacted them, so they became an influence. And when you're in ministry, that's the thing, you know. Uh, and that ripple effect kind of thing is very cool because we have a program here. It's like a youth conference thing. It's
Mhm.
called Yes Weekend, and it's in Valdosta, Georgia. Forest Park hosts that. That's their deal. Um, but this guy got up to speak, and he talked about this woman that she was a child. She was an orphan, and she was adopted by two Christian parents. They were an influence on her. And then there was somebody that, their youth minister
Mhm.
took her in and really helped establish her faith even further beyond, her Christian parents. She had another great influence. And then there was another individual that said, well, I think that it would be a great thing for you to get a Christian education. So they paid for her to have a Christian education, and then and it was just like ripple after ripple after ripple of these people, and they were both paid ministers, but they were also other individuals that did ministry in other ways by being there. And at the very end of the lesson, he said, "That was my mom."
Wow.
And so he was a preacher then
Hmm.
because of and I think that uh, largely came from the faith that he was brought up with, that she got by all the influences that she had. So when you're making, you make eternal differences in the fact that if you just reach one person that you know is then an influence on somebody else, like it's gone beyond you. But the thing about it is, if you've given your life to ministry, there is no telling how many people you've impacted. And it's not just people that like come forward and are baptized, and it's not just those individuals, because there are so many things that we do not see. There are so many problems at home. There are so many, like, questions about, like, you know, am I doing right? Or, you know, there's all these occurrences of repentance that I know are going on with people that don't come forward, but they've decided, I'm going to make a change in my life because of the word that was preached to me, or that by the example that was shown to me. Uh, and it's incredible the impact that we have, because our job is about souls, and those souls particularly their eternal destination. Right? That's what we care about. Whether our focus is on evangelism or in edifying, it is about that. And it's just the greatest work in the world.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
yeah. Just the thought of, you know, for a summer, or at least when I was in high school, I mowed yards,
mm-hmm.
and I think about, how I mowed those yards, and now someone else is mowing those yards. I don't know who
Yeah,
it is, but someone else is mowing those yards. Um, I don't know. When you mow grass, it's always growing back, and you always got to go back and mow it again. And yeah, just the difference between, like, I think about how temporary that job is, and
mm-hmm.
how temporary the impact is, as in you mow a yard and then 2 weeks you got to go back and mow it again. That's how temporary. That's how temporary it is.
Yeah,
Um, but to think about that, you could be affecting something that I don't even think we understand, which is eternity, something that will never end. You know, we
yeah,
get to we get to affect someone's never ending. You know, so
yeah.
there's a lot.
It's that Matthew chapter 25 scene where you've got Jesus and he says, come judgment day. There's going to be those on my right hand and those on my left hand. Those right hand, the sheep, they'll be entered in. They will go into the kingdom, and they'll have eternal life. And the ones on the left hand will have eternal destruction. But it's amazing to think that God used you to bring people into that right hand. And they're there because God used you to get them there. And that, I mean, like, that's a proud thing to think about, and we don't want to. And the reason why I say God used you is because that's what we need to remember.
Hmm.
But you were used. You were the individual that helped bring those some people into that right hand to spend eternity with God. It's like that. There's a weight. There is a big weight with this, and of course we want to be speaking the truth. There's a weight, there's a pressure to always, familiarize yourself with the scriptures and be strong in the scriptures, because the truth, God is the one that really brings people to salvation. It is the truth that leads people to believe, repentance, and baptism. It's not our words. It's conviction of the gospel. But even that in itself is a blessing as a part of this too, because it pushes us to greater zeal, greater dependence on God, greater humility, right? We say, like, let you do this work through me, Lord. And so it leads you to a greater faith. And it's like all of these things are building on one another. And there are challenges to ministry, as we've talked about the last two
Hmm.
episodes. But, like, when you're involved in making eternal differences, how can you not be zealous when you're reminded of that, reminded what it's all about? And it's just like, I get to do the greatest thing that anybody can do for a living, you
Yep.
know, and so yeah.
Yeah. I think about, um, a lot of people that I know. Uh, I had a guy tell me one time. He said, on Sunday nights, he says, I stay up as long as I can because I know Monday morning I have to go to work. And, I know once I go to sleep on Sunday night, this day of worshiping and being around God's people and all of this, it's, for, in a big part, that's over with until, we come back together.
Hmm.
Um, we don't have to do that because Monday morning we wake up and we're around God's people and we do God's work. And
Yeah.
Um, that it's like that Sunday feeling, but just every day of the week. You know, um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because you're visiting with folks and making calls, and at the very least you're thinking about your thoughts are on the next Sunday.
mm-hmm,
you
yep,
know, your thoughts are, that's me on Monday morning. I've got to, all right, what am I going to talk about next week?
mm-hmm,
You know, and so, but yeah, it's a blessing.
yeah.
All right.
Well, I guess we'll go to the mid roll, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about some more things, some more blessings in ministry.
Yeah.
So again, we just want to say thank you for listening today. Whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or you're watching this on Rumble or YouTube or Facebook. Whether you're in the ministry league, listening to the podcast on there, we're just thankful that you've decided to listen. Um, if you want some nice merch like Zach's coffee cup, if you saw that earlier, there's a Bearing Up shop where you can go and you can support this podcast and get up your Bearing Up merch. I just want to take this moment to say thank you for listening. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to this conversation. And I hope that this conversation maybe uplifts and encourages you, and hopefully it can make your day a better day.
Okay. So we've talked about some important things, some really important things, and we're going to continue to talk about two other things that, and maybe we could have talked about something else, but I think that this third one is really important, and I think it's, I don't know, it's really important to me, uh, and maybe it's really important to you too, that we talk about this separately from the other little things,
Mm-hmm.
and that is being a minister allows for a solid family foundation. I think it's the ultimate job to have uh, for a family. I think that it is, and we talked about how family can sometimes, not be on the same wavelength as you. They might have some pressure towards you as a minister, but I think that ultimately it's the best job to have for the family. Um, there's that flexibility that we mentioned before. If you need to be with your family, if you need to be, you really you're able to participate in all the extracurriculars. You have a lot more time that you can focus on your family. Sometimes you get pulled away. Sometimes it's like there's an emergency and somebody needs their preacher, somebody needs their minister or whatever, um, and so you go to those things. But when you're in ministry, you have such an incredible focus on God all the time, and that makes it a lot easier to keep the focus in home upon God too, because your life individually and personally is so entrenched in the spiritual. You're constantly thinking about the spiritual, and so like with that in mind, it's like you're not just reminded on Sunday that, oh, my child has a soul and I have to bring them up in the Lord. You're reminded every single day that you know I am the spiritual leader of this house, and not just a breadwinner, or I'm the head of the household or anything like that. I'm the spiritual leader of this home. You're reminded of that like every day, uh, and it just it's there's a lot of particular blessings of the work that impact your family dynamic in your relationships in your family.
Yeah, I think about Zach. You and I before the podcast was talking about premarital counseling, and
Yeah.
different avenues and different ways people do that. Um, but if you're a minister and you're doing premarital counseling, you're telling a couple, hey, you should ask these questions and you should talk about these things. And there are moments, that it reminds you, hey, me and my marriage, we should be asking these questions and we should be talking about these things.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure, like the same thing with children. If you're saying, God says this about raising children, it is a constant reminder
Yeah.
um, of having to reflect upon your own life.
Yeah.
Um, I think about, I work with kids a lot, and just all the things that kids go through, whether it be lacking self confidence or addictions or peer pressure. It's a reminder to myself, maybe my own lack of self confidence or fighting my own addictions or my, peer pressure that I feel, from different things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you're helping people through whatever sin or issues there are, it's constantly reminding you to look at maybe your own sins or your own
Yeah.
issues and how you should deal with those. Um, yeah, so it's definitely a reminder. I think it's easy to be reminded of all the things we should be doing,
Yeah.
because we're helping other people do what they should be doing.
Yeah. I've been reading some books on by a guy named Dr. Kevin Lehman, and he writes a lot of like family-based books. He writes some marriage books, and particularly he writes a lot on parenting. And the thing about it is like this is his career. Like he goes around and he like does conferences and he writes these books and all of that. But but in doing so, he uses those things in his own home. So he's like, I know these things work because we've done them and we've practiced them. And he says, I've got five perfect kids, not perfect, but like they're all well behaved and they have good character. And, like, but he's gotten to like develop those things, from trial and error. Being a parent, everything is trial and error. But like, it's his job to like
Hmm.
go through the study, and it's the same way for ministers, not just in like you're studying to grow in counseling. You can read the parent books and the marriage books, and you can do that so that you can be a resource to other people, right? And it affects you in the way that you parent and the way that you are a spouse and all of that. But like, going back to the word of God and getting to study that all the time, you know, you're constantly reminded in the intense study of scripture, how to be a leader in your family and how to be the head of the home and how to be a father and how to be a husband, and it's just like that constant inflow of the word, prepares you and equips you to lead your family in a godly way. So having that job, having this career, opens you up to that in ways that other jobs can't. If you work for a bank or you are an electrician or you can think about your family while you're doing those things. You can think about your family all day long doing all kinds of things. Um, you know, there's some jobs that are highly mentally, and you got to push everything out and not think about anything else. Um, you know, but it's something that affects you in a positive way, uh, in the home, um, and then ultimately there becomes no question as to what your greatest priority is, both for your wife and for your children. To see you as an individual who goes to work each day and is focused on God, but then comes home and continues to live a ministering life. Maybe you do devotionals with your kids. you at least are praying with your kids. If you're not praying with your kids, you're doing something wrong. And I'm not. You're parenting wrong if you're not praying with your kids. I won't say that about very many
It's a
things.
bold statement. Yeah.
You're parenting wrong if you're. No, I mean like you should be. Um, that is a very bold statement.
Hmm.
But like, what's most important? And they will not see what's most important unless that's displayed to them. What's most important? If if you come home and all you do is watch TV and you don't play with them and you don't acknowledge them, like they know what's most important. I get my job done, and then it's all about me in the afternoon. But that I feel like when you're engaged in ministry, the temptation to do that is very low because you want to come back and yes, you want to relax, and yes, you want to like have some time to yourself, and everybody needs time to themselves to unwind. And there's a good study on how men have to have a transitioning time between activities.
Hmm.
You know, there has to be maybe like a 10-minute, uh, you know, restructuring time, refocusing time, between a job and at home, and between this activity and that. Um, but at any rate, you know, at the end of the day, there's no question as to what is most important to you, and that reflects on your spouse and your children. They see that when you are engaged in ministry each day, but then you come home and you still have that attitude. So
Yep. I mean,
okay,
yeah. I mean,
you
I
remember that.
just
No.
well, something else. I mean, something else that I think of is just this whole idea that I feel like a huge hypocrite if I say if I give someone the advice of, hey, you should probably pray with your spouse every day or with your children every day. Um, hey, you should probably maybe have a time of study or devotional with your spouse or children.
Yeah.
Most days, and for me to tell other people that that's a good thing for their family, and for me to not do that at all, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Right now, we don't have a devotional thing going on right now. Graham and I do church practice every day to help him with sitting still,
Hmm.
but that's really what that is. It's not like a devotional period. Uh, but we do pray every day. And Emily and I, we pray every single day together. That's, in the evenings we do that. And, like, I've personally have never had a relationship that was like that. Um, and so that has made an an incredible difference. Like, and I can't even describe the difference that prayer has made in praying with her every day. I've never been closer to anybody. I've never been, you know, so entrenched on having you know, this is what a godly relationship is supposed to look like, and it's just like, yeah, you don't want to miss that. That's, but yeah, so, but yeah, I know it's a hard thing to do, and sometimes the being focused on the spiritual all day long, you kind of want to like, well, I already did my Bible reading, and I already did that, you know. Um, but as a minister, what's most important.
Hmm.
Nobody has to tell you what's most important. Uh, and so at least you are challenged, and that's a part of this too. You're challenged not by appearances, not just so that other people will look at your family and think, "Wow, what godly people." No, because it has to be a priority for you, and you want it to be a priority for you.
Hmm.
So, all right, you ready to talk about the last thing, or you want to
Let's
add to that?
I'm good. I'm good with the
Okay.
last thing. Yep.
So, um, so number four is, and finally, um, you have assurance that what you're doing is worth it, and you just have an assurance of an eternal home. Right? Every Christian can have that, uh, but there's an awesome, a special kind of assurance, um, and I don't want us to confuse this with pride, like we're earning our salvation or anything like that, because you're not. But just to know that your work on earth will be and is rewarding, and that every what you're doing with your life is worth it. That is a wonderful assurance.
Yeah. Knowing that, in my mind, knowing that you're giving 100% of your time and your energy and your thoughts, that you're able to give everything to God,
Yeah.
your whole life to God. Um, and like you said, it's not a pride thing. It's not a thing of like, oh, well, I'm the preacher, so that means I'm so spiritual. That means that I'm so above or so.
No.
Um, it's the fact that we have the opportunity and that we're able to do what we do, um, and that and that one day that we get to be with the God that we work for, that we get to
Yeah.
be, with, um, and we get to be hopefully with people with souls that we have impacted, and hopefully encourage them, you know, to go to heaven and to be with God.
Yeah. And there's a wonderful thing, and do you remember taking that values class when you were a
Hmm.
senior? And yeah, who did you have as a teacher? Just as a
I actually had it with. I actually took it twice, not because I failed the
what?
class, not because I
Because
failed
you
the class.
wanted to take it again?
I took it with Nathan Wharf the first time, and then
Okay.
it was a very good class, an amazing class. But then I had never had a class with Jim Gardner, and he was teaching values my last semester senior year, and I wanted to say I had a class with Jim Gardner, so I took it. I took it twice.
Oh man, I had him for Joshua Judge's Ruth.
Mm,
Yeah. But I had Kippy Myers,
mm,
and I really enjoyed him too. Anyway, that's besides the point.
yeah.
I remember him talking about in that class. There was a quote that was talking about the character of a monk. How do you tell what the character of a monk is? And the quote is by the way that he sweeps the floor, with his broom or something like that. Um, and it was talking about how like when you live your life, you are displaying your character and what's important to you, no matter what you're doing, whether it's sweeping a broom or sharpening a pencil or like you know. And another one is another great quote is make your desk an altar to God, and that was from that. But that's not just a thing for ministers. Your desk should be an altar for God. It's anybody. You can glorify God in computer programming or being an accountant, or you can be whatever your job is, your workplace, your desk, wherever you are, can be an altar to God in the sense that you're trying to glorify Him in what you do. But when you're involved in ministry, there's like a whole nother level. Because sometimes people are like, I enter in code if I'm a computer programmer, right?
Mm,
Or I handle accounts and deal with money, or I solder these things together, and it's just like how am I glorifying God in that? Sometimes the lines are kind of blurred, and it's like and there's a temptation to like forget. you know, well, I'm just doing this for the paycheck. Well, nobody should just be working just for the paycheck.
Hmm.
You should be using your talents to glorify God and saying, I'm, I'm being this teacher for you, God, because you gave me these abilities so that I can use this, and I'm gonna use my talents that you've given me and be a good steward of them, each and every day. But it's hard to see that a lot of the times when you're in secular work. But like when you put in a real good day of ministry, you're just like, I don't know. It's like a sense of pride, but it's not so much in yourself. It's just the idea that you gave it your all for God today. And you walk away with, each real good day of ministry, you pull away from that and you think, I hope that, this was beneficial and worth it, but I've given my all today to you, God. And then at the very end of your life, when you stick with the truth, you hold on to faith, you echo Paul's words, 2 Timothy 4:7, I have fought the good fight, I've finished the course, I've kept the faith, and you've stuck with it, and you've been in ministry and have been working hard, and you've impacted souls, and it's just like, what a great insurance to that. Because then what did he say after that? There is a crown waiting for me. And that's what it's all about. Like, I'm going to go to heaven and I'm going to bring as many people with me as I can. And we all should have that attitude. But when you're in ministry and you get to make that your life, it's what an assurance. What a blessing that is for each of us.
Yeah, I think about that those verses, 2 Timothy 4:7 and 8. He ends it with, you know, there's a crown of righteousness laid up, not only for me, but for everyone who looks for it, who everyone
Yeah.
who waits on it, and hopefully, hopefully through our efforts, there are a few more people waiting on it. There are a few more people wanting, you know, wanting to be with God and looking for heaven. And that's what ministry is all about. That's what preach. It is about edifying, and it is also, whether that is, making sure that the flock, that a sheep, doesn't stray, or whether that's bringing new people into the fold.
Yeah.
It's all about trying to make sure that there are as many people looking for that crown of righteousness as there can be. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I was reminded of something. Maybe I should have mentioned this in a different section here. But I guess it's a part of this. Um, we had this past Sunday, and this episode is coming out like later, so it'll be like a few Sundays ago. But we had a guy recently who he was a counselor. He's a retired counselor, and his work was in drug and alcohol abuse counseling. Uh, his name is Bernard Tellis, and he got up and he spoke, and I asked him to do that, speak on addiction, because that was his job. He dealt with addiction. I'm like, well, this would be a great opportunity for him to take his experience and apply, that with the Word of God. I was like, okay, so that'd be a good thing. And he began his lesson by saying how thankful he was to have the opportunity to speak, that the elders trusted him to speak, get up and speak, and to just have the honor of breaking open the Word of God. He said it was the greatest thing that he could do. And it kind of took me back a little bit. I'm like, and I get to do it all the time. And, I mean, and it's just like, wow, that you know, you get to do something that is of such great importance. Um, and there's so many blessings that we can take and recognize that we have ourselves, but you know, you get to be a blessing to other people. And it's just like you're given the opportunity by God to break open his word and to share it with others, and it's just like there's nothing better than that. So so if you were on the fence about ministry, uh I hope you're not by the end of this episode.
Hmm.
And I know that there's probably a lot more that we could say. We could probably have another whole episode, but oh man, there's a glory to ministry for sure. Well, do you have anything else you wanted to add or say?
Um, not anything more than than I appreciate you, and I appreciate your ministry. Um, even though I don't live in Georgia, um, I appreciate the impact that you're making on souls there in that community. Um,
Well,
so
thank you. I feel the same way about you. It's so wonderful to know, uh, you know, brothers in Christ who will, you know, are just so passionate about the work, and so I appreciate your heart for that. I want to give you the servant spotlight today, but I have another one that we're gonna do in just a second.
all right.
So so let's do that. We thank you so much for listening. Please stick around here. Uh, we'll have a short prayer and our servant spotlight, and also comment if we've left out anything. You know, if you're in ministry or maybe you are, you know, sometimes when you're really close to a subject, you kind of forget about some things. So maybe you're not in ministry and you're like, well, this is a blessing. This is something you get to do that you know other people don't get to do. So so comment if we left anything out. And yeah, we'll go ahead and do that prayer and serve the spotlight. So let's pray. God, we thank you so much for being with us. And Joshua and I just want to thank you so much that we get to be involved in ministry and uh, that we get to make this our life's work. And we're thankful for those that are listening that have made the commitment to do uh, the work of ministry as a career, as a job, but as a life. And just ask, dear Lord, that you'll bless them and help them to be steadfast and maybe in the reminder of these great blessings, they are encouraged. Um, whether folks that are listening are ministers or not, I pray, dear Lord, that they are encouraged and maybe they are reminded to go and go lift up and build up their preacher or their youth minister or wherever they may be, um, because that encouragement is so needed. And we just thank you, Lord, for so many in the brotherhood that are doing work for their ministers and to encourage them and build them up. We're glad that there are other avenues besides just this podcast that they're used to encourage. But we thank you, dear Lord, for this work, and we ask, dear Lord, that you'll continue to bless us and bless all of those that are listening today and bless your kingdom. We thank you so much for Christ and his sacrifice for us. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. So I cannot remember if I've met this person in person or not.
All right.
So, but the reason why I say that is because he has a large social media presence. He is a minister of the church. I know him. He is. I think we have met in person. We are friends on Facebook. But his name is Lee Snow, and he is the minister for the Church of Christ at Warm Springs Road in Columbus, Georgia. And he is involved in a lot of different ministries, and he has a fantastic servant heart. But the one thing I wanted to highlight today is how well he has used social media at being a light. You have probably, if you are any big on social media, especially if you've got a TikTok or Facebook, uh, he is hilarious. He is really, really funny. But most of what he's talking about are like ministry jokes and things like that. But he also takes the time, um, to teach the truth. He gets a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds following him, thousands of people, and he doesn't shy away from teaching the truth about salvation and different things like that. So he uses that, uh, his viralness, because he's gone viral a few times. He uses that for God's glory, and so he has the servant spotlight today. Lee Snow, go look him up on TikTok or on Facebook. Again, he's hilarious, but he's using his presence online to glorify God and to be an example to others. So that's the servant spotlight today. Uh, I want to go ahead and highlight, since we were talking about ministry today, um, all of those that are involved in ministry as well, and just hope that you will stick with it. Maybe the blessings we've talked about today have been encouraging to you. Um, Joshua, it's been fun, man.
It's been great. It's been,
Until yep,
yep. Until next time.
until next time. That's right. So, thanks everyone for watching or listening today, and we hope to see you then.